I died choking on my own blood in the back of a blacked-out SUV. The metallic tang mixing with the cheap bourbon on the driver's breath as he swerved through the Jersey Turnpike at 90 miles an hour. My last thought wasn't revenge, it was betrayal. Sharp as the knife twist in my gut from the man I'd called my fiancé. The one who'd sold me out for a corner office and a fat bonus for my family's crumbling empire. But death? It was supposed to be the end. Instead, it spat me back out like yesterday's trash. 18 years old again. Staring at my reflection in the cracked mirror of my dorm room at NYU. Heart pounding like I'd just run from the devil himself. That mirror hadn't changed, freckles across my nose. Wild auburn curls I could never tame. Eyes the color of storm clouds over the Hudson. But I had. Or rather, I hadn't yet. It was September 2007. The air thick with the buzz of freshman orientation and the faint echo of 9/11 still lingering in the skyline. My phone buzzed on the desk. A text from Jake. My high school sweetheart. All heart emojis and can't wait to see you this weekend. Babe. The same Jake who'd, in my first life, whispered sweet nothings while wiring my inheritance to offshore accounts. The same Jake who'd watched paramedics scrape me off the asphalt with all the remorse of a cat batting at a dead mouse. I smashed the phone against the wall. Shards of plastic raining down like confetti from hell. My hands shook. Not from fear, but from the fire-eyed thought extinguished. Grandpa's voice echoed in my head, his gravelly New York drawl. The one that could charm a loan shark or scare off a bill collector. Ella. Kiddo. Life's a rigged game. You gotta play dirty to win clean. He'd built Harrington Imports from a hole-in-the-wall warehouse in Brooklyn to a logistics giant shipping everything from knockoff Chanel to black-market caviar across the Atlantic. And I'd been his golden girl, groomed to take over, until the wolves circled. In that first life, it started small. Jake, fresh out of Wharton, sliding into my world with his Ivy League grin and promises of forever. We met at a gala for the company, me in a thrift store gown that somehow passed for vintage chic, him in a tux that screamed old money. He wooed me with rooftop bars in Soho and whispers about merging our futures. Literally. By 2015, we were engaged, and Harrington Imports was bleeding cash. Turns out, Jake's consulting firm was just a front for siphoning funds, laundering them through shell companies tied to Eastern European syndicates. Grandpa saw it coming. Of course. He confronted Jake in the boardroom, his face purple with rage, pounding the mahogany table until the crystal decanter shattered. You touch my girl. You touch my legacy, you're dead. Boy. But Jake didn't kill Grandpa. No. That was the twist that gutted me worse than the crash. Grandpa had a heart attack that night, clutching his chest in the elevator down from the penthouse, whispering my name as the doors dinged open to an empty lobby. Official story, stress from the recession. My story, poisoned by the very secrets he'd buried deeper than Jimmy Hoffa's bones. And Jake? He played the grieving widower-to-be, consoling me through tears while emptying the vaults. By the time I uncovered the ledgers, nights hunched over my laptop in our Tribeca loft, cross-referencing wire transfers with a bottle of Malbec he'd already vanished with 80 million and my soul. I forgave him once. God, what a fool. After the crash, staged as a tragic accident, when I got too close to the truth, I woke up in a hospital bed, tubes snaking into my arms, Jake at my side with lilies and lies. Babe, you slipped on ice. Hit your head bad. The doctors called it a miracle. I called it karma's cruel joke. I let him back in, rebuilt the company on his terms, Married him in a Vegas chapel because why not? Life's short.
Short?
Try terminal. 2 years later. Same SUV. Same driver, this time. No ice. Just a bullet-riddled windshield and Jake's cold directive. Loose ends. Boss.
Now.
Here I was. Reborn in my 18-year-old skin. The dorm reeking of ramen and regret. I rifled through my desk drawer. Fingers closing around the locket Grandpa had given me for graduation, a silver oval engraved with YH. Unbreakable.
Inside.
A photo of us at Coney Island, his arms slung around my shoulders. Both of us laughing at the cyclone's shadow. That locket had saved me once. The chain snapped in the crash, lodging in my throat just enough to buy seconds for the paramedics. Seconds I wasted on forgiveness. No more. This time, I'd rewrite the script. But first, I needed proof. Grandpa was alive, 72. Chain-smoking Camels in his Park Avenue apartment, oblivious to the storm brewing. Jake was still in Philly, prepping for Penn, sending me those puppy dog texts. And the stranger? He'd come later. The ghost in the machine. The one who'd taken everything when the dust settled. But to get there, I had to play the long game. Pretend I was still that wide-eyed kid. All dreams and no demons. I grabbed my backpack, slung it over one shoulder, and headed out into the crisp Manhattan morning. The subway rattled beneath my feet like a premonition. Vendors hawking pretzels and tabloids screaming about subprime mortgages. I transferred at Union Square, eyes scanning the crowds for faces I'd memorized from board meetings a decade from now. There, Marcus Hale, the family lawyer, already graying at the temples, nursing a coffee outside a deli. In my first life, he'd been Jake's inside man, forging signatures on the merger docs that gutted the company.
Ella.
Harrington? That you? His voice boomed, all fake warmth. I forced a smile, the kind that didn't reach my eyes. Mr.
Hale.
Fancy running into you. Grandpa mentioned you might swing by the office today.
Lie.
But it planted the seed. I chatted him up, innocent questions about trusts and estates, my voice light as cotton candy. He bought it. Hook,
Line,
and sinker, spilling just enough about irregularities in the overseas accounts to confirm what I already knew. The rot started with a single shipment from Riga, Latvia, back in '05. Smuggled antiquities, laundered through our manifests. Grandpa's side hustle, the one he'd sworn me to secrecy on. By noon, I was in the family office on Wall Street, the elevator dinging like a starting gun. Grandpa's secretary, Mrs. Delgado, 50-something, with a perm that defied gravity, waved me in.
Ella. Mia.
He's in a mood. That new partner's breathing down his neck. The office smelled of leather and Cuban cigars. Floor-to-ceiling windows framing the harbor where our ships once docked. Grandpa sat behind his desk, a mountain of a man in a rumpled pinstripe suit, barking into the phone. Tell that son of a bitch if he thinks he can undercut me on the Baltic run. I'll bury him in red tape from here to Helsinki. He hung up, spotted me, and his face split into that bear hug grin. Ace. What brings my favorite troublemaker to the salt mines? I crossed the room, hugged him tight enough to feel the rasp of his wool vest against my cheek. His heart thumped steady for now. Missed you, Gramps.
And.
I need to talk business. His bushy brows shot up. Business? At 18? Hell.
Kiddo.
You're scaring me.
Sit. Spill.
We talked for hours, me steering the conversation like a pro poker player, bluffing with half-truths from the future. I warned him about the Latvian deal. Vague enough to sound intuitive. Something feels off. Like hidden fees or worse. He chuckled. But I saw the flicker in his eyes, the old fox sensing a trap. By the time I left, he'd promised to audit the books personally, and I'd slipped a burner phone into his desk drawer, programmed with my number. No traces. That night, back in the dorm, I lay awake plotting. Jake's next text lit up my screen. Weekend plans? XO, I typed back. Fingers flying. Absolutely. Can't wait. Swallow the bait. Shark boy. This time, I'd be the one reeling you in. But forgiveness? That was the wild card. The controversy brewing in my gut. In my first life, I'd let it go, blamed myself for loving too hard, for trusting the family name over my instincts.
Now,
Reborn. The rage was a live wire, but so was the doubt. What if exposing Jake destroyed more than him? What if Grandpa's secrets were dirtier than I'd imagined? The stranger who'd taken it all, he wasn't Jake. No. That shadow loomed larger. Tied to blood I never questioned. Little did I know. The first crack in the facade came the next morning, when Mrs. Delgado called in a panic.
Ella.
Your grandpa, he's got a visitor. Says it's urgent. Some guy from out of town. Won't give a name. My blood ran cold. The stranger. Already? I bolted from class, hailing a cab through the snarl of midtown traffic, the cabbie cursing at jaywalkers like it was personal. By the time I burst into the office, voices echoed from behind the frosted glass, Grandpa's rumble, low and wary, and another, smoother, like oil on water. I didn't knock. I pushed the door open, and there he was, mid-40s, sharp suit, salt and pepper hair slicked back, eyes like chipped obsidian. He turned, slow, appraising me like a cut of meat at auction. And this must be the granddaughter.
Ella.
Right? I've heard. Stories. Grandpa cleared his throat, uneasy. Ace. This is Victor Kane. Old associate from the war days. Says he needs a favor. Victor Kane. The name hit like a sucker punch. In my first life, he'd been the ghost buyer. The one who scooped up Harrington Imports remnants for pennies after the fall, turning it into a cartel front. The man who'd taken everything. And now, here he was, smiling like he owned the room already. Nice to meet you. Ella, he said, extending a hand that felt like shaking with the reaper. Your grandpa and I go way back. Family business. You know. I shook it, nails digging in just enough to draw a flicker of surprise. Family. The word twisted in my chest, a premonition of the storm to come. Little did I know, Victor wasn't the stranger I'd thought. He was the key to the lock I'd never seen. Victor Kane lingered like a bad aftertaste. His cologne, a mix of bergamot and menace, clinging to the office ere long after he left with a vague promise to circle back on that Riga opportunity. Grandpa waved it off as nostalgia, cracking open a drawer for his flask. But I saw the tension in his jaw, the way his fingers drummed the desk like Morse code for trouble. Old war buddies.
Ace. Korea.
We ran supplies, nothing glamorous. Kane's always been a hustler, but harmless. Harmless? In my first life, Victor had been the architect of the endgame, the one who whispered in Jake's ear about synergies while rigging bids to bankrupt us. But hearing Grandpa tie him to Korea? That was new. Or old, buried history surfacing like a submarine periscope. I filed it away, nodding like the dutiful granddaughter. But inside, gears ground. If Victor was circling now, 8 years early, the timeline was accelerating. I had to move faster. That weekend, I drove up to Philly in my beat-up Honda, same rust bucket from high school, radio blasting Springsteen to drown the what-ifs. Jake met me at the train station instead, all boyish charm in a pen hoodie, wrapping me in a hug that smelled of Axe body spray and ambition. God, I missed you.
Él.
Campus life's a grind without my girl. We walked the quad, leaves crunching underfoot like brittle bones, him rambling about econ classes and frat rushes. I played along, laughing at his jokes, tracing the veins on his hand as we sat on a bench by the Schuylkill. But my mind was a vault, cracking open memories. The night he'd proposed, down on one knee in Central Park, ring glinting under the Bethesda fountain. I'd said yes, blinded by the sparkle, ignoring the ledger I'd glimpsed on his laptop, transfers to VK Holdings. Victor Kane. The stranger and my fiancé, twined like vipers. You okay? You seem distant, Jake said, tilting my chin up.
His eyes.
That piercing blue. Searched mine. In another life, it had melted me.
Now?
It fueled the inferno. Just homesick. Grandpa's on my case about internships. Says I gotta shadow him next summer. Lie number 2. Truth, I'd already emailed HR. Pulling strings to get an entry-level gig at Harrington, starting Monday. Close enough to watch the Wolves without tipping my hand. He grinned.
Relieved.
That's my girl, future CEO. We'll run that place together someday.
You? Me?
Unstoppable. Unstoppable. The words soured on my tongue. We made love that night in his off-campus apartment. The walls thin as tissue. Neighbors' arguments bleeding through like accusations. I faked the moans, mapped his scars, the appendix one from childhood, the knife fight in undergrad he'd lied about as a hiking mishap. Every touch was reconnaissance, every whisper a probe. By dawn, as he slept tangled in sheets, I slipped his laptop from under the bed. Password cracking easy. Our anniversary.
The sap.
The files were there. Embryonic. Spreadsheets labeled Project Phoenix. Notes on acquiring Harrington assets via proxy. No mention of Victor, yet. But the dates aligned. Projections for 2012, when the recession would hit like a sledgehammer. Jake's plan. In utero. I copied what I could to a thumb drive, heart hammering, then slid back into bed, his arm heavy across my waist like an anchor. Back in New York Sunday night, I holed up in the NYU library, the fluorescent hum a white noise for paranoia. Cross-referencing Jake's files with public records, easy in the pre-GDPR days, I traced the threads. VK Holdings registered in Delaware. 2006. Victor Kane, sole proprietor. And the kicker? A notarized affidavit from Marcus Hale, dated last month, authorizing a consultancy fee for logistics advisory. 15 grand. Chump change now. But the foothold for the avalanche. I confronted Marcus the next day, cornering him in the firm's basement archives. Dust motes dancing like guilty secrets. Mr.
Hale.
About that Riga audit Grandpa mentioned. I pulled some strings. Found discrepancies. Care to explain the payment to VK? His face blanched, Adam's apple bobbing like a buoy in a storm.
Ella.
Sweetheart, that's confidential. Your grandpa is my boss now. I cut in, voice steel wrapped in sugar. And if he finds out his lawyer's skimming for strangers,
Well.
family sticks together, right? He folded like wet cardboard, spilling over lukewarm coffee in the break room. Victor wasn't just an old army pal. Grandpa owed him big. Korea. 52. A botched supply run. Black market morphine for the front lines. Victor took the fall. Did 18 months in Leavenworth for theft, while Grandpa walked with a medal and a clean slate. Kane's been patient, Marcus muttered. But with the economy tanking, he's calling in markers. That Latvian deal? It's his ticket back in legit cover for. Other imports. Other imports. The word hung, laced with implication. Drugs? Guns? Worse? Grandpa's side hustle wasn't antiquities. It was the underbelly of post-war America. The shadows that built empires on bones. I'd borne that sin in my first life, unknowingly fronting shipments that armed cartels. My signature on manifests that buried bodies from Tijuana to Trenton. The guilt had eaten me alive, turning forgiveness into a noose.
But now?
Knowledge was power, and I wielded it like a blade. I leaked the discrepancies anonymously to a Wall Street Journal tip line, vague enough to spark an investigation without fingering Grandpa directly. By week's end, headlines buzzed. Harrington Imports faces scrutiny in Baltic trade probe. Victor called the office. Voice velvet over venom. Tell your grandpa we're square after this. Or else. Grandpa didn't flinch. He called a family dinner, me, Kim, Aunt Lydia from Queens, Uncle Ray with his beer gut and bad jokes at his favorite steakhouse in Little Italy. Over ribeyes bleeding pink. He laid it out. Els. The game's changing. Kane's pushing for a partnership. I say no. We audit everything. But if it's dirty, we burn it down. Burn it down. The words ignited something primal. That night, alone in my childhood bedroom, pink walls mocking my rebirth, I penned a letter to Jake. All love and longing, but laced with bait. Heard about the probe. Scary stuff. Think you could look into it for me? Your econ brain's the best. Hook set. The controversy hit midterms. Campus forums lit up with whispers, Harrington air-dodging questions. Protesters chaining themselves to the library steps chanting, blood money out. I'd sparked it. But the backlash burned, friends ghosting. Professors side-eyeing my essays. Was I the villain now? Doxing my own blood for revenge? Jake texted fire. WTF. El? Your family's imploding. Need me there? Come, I replied. Save me. He arrived Friday, duffel in hand, playing knight in shining armor. We walked the High Line, city lights winking like conspirators. And I let him comfort me, tears real, rage veiled. It's Victor, I whispered.
Testing.
Grandpa's old friend. He's the one pushing the shady deals. Jake stiffened. Just a microsecond. But I caught it. Victor Kane? Never heard of him. Liar. The pieces slotted. Jake wasn't the puppet. He was the apprentice. Groomed by Victor since Wharton internships I'd never known about. The stranger who'd taken everything? Not Victor alone, it was a syndicate. Blood deep. As we kissed under the vessel's shadow, I tasted ashes. Forgiveness flickered. A traitor's temptation. What if I warned Jake? Pulled him back from the edge? Saved the man I once loved? Damned the empire? The decision gnawed. Gray as Gotham fog. Monday brought the subpoena, SEC knocking, badges gleaming. Grandpa faced it like a lion, but I saw the crack, a faded photo slipping from his wallet during the search. Him and Victor, young and grinning in fatigues, arms around a third man. The caption, scribbled, "Brothers in arms. 52. Brothers. Not buddies." The secret unspooling, thread by bloody thread. And me, I was the spider at the center, weaving the web tighter. The SEC raid turned the office into a circus, agents in windbreakers rifling drawers, sealing boxes with red tape that screamed guilty before trial. Grandpa held court in the conference room, cigar unlit between his teeth, charming the lead investigator with tales of honest mistakes in paperwork. But his eyes, when they met mine across the chaos, were haunted pools. "Ace, get out. This ain't your fight. It was my war." I'd lit the fuse, and now the powder keg smoked. I slipped away to the rooftop terrace, the wind whipping my hair like a flag of surrender. Phone buzzing with Jake's voicemails. "Babe, turn on CNN. It's everywhere. Call me. We'll figure this out." Figure it out. As if he hadn't mapped the blueprint. Victor struck first. Not with fists but finesse. A courier delivered a manila envelope to my dorm that afternoon, unmarked, heavy as regret. Inside, photocopies of ledgers from 52, yellowed pages detailing the morphine heist, Grandpa's signature bold as brass. A note in crisp type, "Family secrets die hard. Drop the probe, or these go public." V.K. Blackmail. Vintage. But the real gut punch? Tucked in the fold. A DNA test kit, and used, addressed to me. For when you're ready to know the truth about your bloodline. What the hell? Grandpa's indiscretions were legend. Boozy flings in ports from Halifax to Havana. But this? Victor positioning himself as the family skeleton. Rattling bones I didn't know existed. I didn't sleep. Instead, I drove to Philly at 3 a.m., the turnpike a black ribbon unspooling under sodium lights. Springsteen crooning, darkness on the edge of town, like a soundtrack to my unraveling. Jake answered the door in boxers, bleary-eyed, pulling me inside with a yawn that hid the calculation. "El? What's wrong?" I thrust the envelope at him, watching his face cycle through shock to schooled neutrality.
"This.
Victor Kane. You know him, don't you?" He scanned the pages, jaw tightening. Whoa. Heavy.
But.
Yeah. I met him once. Dad's golf buddy mentioned Harrington in passing. Why? Lies layered like onion skin. I peeled, because he's threatening us. And your Project Phoenix files? They match these dates. You're in bed with him.
Jake.
Literally. The room tilted. He dropped the pretense, eyes hardening to flint. You hacked me? Jesus.
Ella.
Paranoia much? Fine. Victor's an investor. Smart money in tough times. Your grandpa's the one who started the dirt. We're just cleaning it up.
Cleaning.
The word ignited the powder. I slapped him, crack echoing off the cinderblock walls, his cheek blooming red. Cleaning? You mean gutting my family for a payday? I know everything, the crash, the bullet, the SUV. You killed me.
Jake. Or you will.
If I let you. He laughed, bitter, rubbing his face. Killed you? You're unhinged. That accident? You were drunk, raging about audits. I saved your ass, paid off the cops. The press. And Victor? He's not the villain. Ask your precious grandpa, who really hung him out to dry in Korea. The twist hit like whiplash. Jake grabbed my arm, voice dropping to a hiss. Victor Kane isn't some outsider.
Él.
He's your uncle. Half-brother to your dad, grandpa's bastard from a wartime fling. DNA doesn't lie. That's why he's got the ledgers. Leverage on the old man who abandoned him. Uncle? The world fractured. Flashes. Grandpa's photo from the raid. The third man, young Victor. Spitting image of Dad's crooked smile. The secret I'd buried? It was mine by blood. The Harrington rot generational. Not incidental. I'd borne it. Fronted it. Died for it, not as victim, but heir. I wrenched free, storming into the night. Jake's shouts fading like exhaust. Back in the city by dawn, I stormed Grandpa's apartment, pounding the door until his bleary face appeared. Robe askew.
Ace.
It's 5 a.m. Victor Kane. Your brother. Tell me. He deflated, gesturing me to the kitchen, pouring scotch neat at that hour. The stories spilled halting. 1951.
Soul.
A nurse named Lila, Victor's mom, brief affair. A son shipped stateside in shame. I sent money. Anonymous.
Thought it ended there.
But Korea broke him. Prison broke him worse. Now he's back. Hungry. Hungry for what? The empire? Or reckoning? Grandpa's eyes glistened. Not tears, but the weight of decades. I should have told you.
Kiddo.
But the family's all I got.
You? Ray?
Lydia, we're the clean slate. Clean? The lie cracked me. I'd sparked the probe to save us. But now it threatened to torch the foundation. The decision loomed. Controversial as sin. Expose Victor. Unravel the blood tie. Invite scandal that'd paint Grandpa as the monster? Or forgive? Fold him in? Risk the syndicate swallowing us whole? I chose fire. Met Victor at a neutral spot, a diner in Hell's Kitchen. 4 mica counters, sticky with grease. EL trains rumbling overhead like judgment. He slid into the booth, smug as a cat with cream.
Ella.
Decided to play grown-up? I slid the DNA kit across the table. Tested it last night. Positive. Uncle Victor, or should I say, the family black sheep. His smile faltered, then sharpened. Smart girl. So, truce? We merge. Harrington Kane Logistics. Clean books. My connections. Your grandpa gets redemption. You get the throne. Truce. The word tasted like cyanide. And Jake? Your errand boy. He shrugged. Ambitious kid. Marry him. Secure the line. Or don't, your call. My call. The tension coiled. A spring ready to snap. I leaned in. Voice low. Here's my counter. Walk away. Or I leak everything. The morphine. The Latvians. Your prison stint. Front page. New York Post style. War hero's bastard son runs drugs from daddy's empire. His eyes narrowed. The diner fading to a cage. You destroy your own blood? Blood's thicker than water, I said. But revenge is thicker still. He laughed. Cold. Tossing a 20 on the table. Kid, you don't know revenge. Wait till you see what I got on the old man. Real skeletons, not just me. He left. Bell tinkling like a death knell. I sat there. Coffee cooling. The weight of the choice crushing. I just escalated. Drawn battle lines across family ties. Controversy brewed, whispers in the tabloids already twisting the probe into Harrington heiress feuds with mystery kin. Protesters swelled outside the office. Signs reading Ella's empire of lies. Friends?
Gone.
Jake's texts. Venomous pleas mixed with threats. You're ruining us. Victor's right, you're poison. The rift widened that week. Aunt Lydia cornered me at the apartment, her rosary clicking like gunfire.
Ella.
This Cain business, it's blasphemy. Your grandpa's no saint, but family forgives. Forgives. The word mocked. Uncle Ray drowned his confusion in six-packs, muttering about, stirring the pot for nothing. Even Mrs. Delgado, loyal as steel, pulled me aside. Mija, vengeance eats the soul. Let the lawyers handle it. But souls? Mine was already ash. I doubled down, hiring a PI, ex-cop named Ruiz, grizzled and greedy, to dig into Victor's shadows. Reports trickled, safe houses in Brighton Beach, meetings with Russian heavies, a trail of accidents from the 80s. And Jake, deep in, interning at VK Holdings under a fake alias. The high wire snapped at the board meeting, 2 weeks post-raid. Suits crammed the room, tension thick as fog. Grandpa at the head, frail now, outlining the restructuring, selling off Baltic routes to strategic partners. Victor's name unspoken, but his shadow loomed. I stood, voice cutting the murmur.
No.
We don't sell. We expose. Victor Kane, my uncle, is the leak. He's been bleeding us since Korea, using Jake Riley, my fiancé, as his pawn. Gasps rippled. Grandpa's face drained to chalk.
Ella.
Sit down.
No.
I slapped the PI's dossier on the table. Photos. Wires. The DNA. This ends now. Or we all go down. Chaos erupted. Shouts. Chairs scraping. Marcus Hale bolting for the door. Victor burst and then, flanked by goons in ill-fitting blazers. His face a mask of fury. You little bitch. Called my bluff. The standoff crackled, his men blocking exits. Board members frozen like deer. Grandpa rose. Shaky but roaring. Touch her.
Kane.
And I'll bury you myself. Victor sneered, pulling a flash drive from his pocket. Too late, brother. It's the full ledger, your morphine runs. My frame job. Every dirty dollar. And Ella's signature on the Latvians? Forged or not. She's complicit. Complicit. The word pinned me. In my first life, I'd signed blindly. Now, reborn, I'd fronted knowingly to bait the trap. The controversy peaked, hero or whore, savior or snake. As sirens wailed distant, my anonymous 911. I lunged for the drive, Victor's hand clamping my wrist. Pain flared, but I twisted free, knee connecting with his gut. He doubled, gasping, and in the scuffle, the truth detonated. The drive skittered across the floor, cracking open to spill papers, not ledgers, but letters. Lila's handwriting, pleading, Victor, he's your father. Come home.
Father.
Not brother. The twist gutted the room. Grandpa sank into his chair, whispering, God.
No. I
knew. Victor straightened, eyes wild.
Yeah.
Dad. You knew. Abandoned us both. The board fled as cops stormed in, cuffs clicking on Victor and his crew. Jake vanished, A ghost in the wind. But the rift? It scarred deep. Grandpa's confession over whiskey that night. Tears carving rivers on his cheeks. I was scared.
8.
War makes cowards.
Victor.
He's my son. Your half-uncle. Blood all the same.
Blood.
The chain binding us. Heavy as lead. The arrests made headlines. Harrington scandal. Heir exposes mob ties. Uncovers family bombshell. Tabloids feasting on the drama like sharks on chum. Victor in Rikers. Awaiting trial on racketeering charges. His syndicate crumbling under federal spotlights.
Jake.
A ghost. Last pinged on a one-way ticket to Toronto. Leaving voicemails that swung from, I loved you, L, to you'll pay for this. I deleted them all. But the echo lingered. A hollow ache in the chest where forgiveness once bloomed. Grandpa aged a decade in days. Shuffling around the apartment in slippers worn thin as his alibis. We didn't talk about the letters, not at first. Instead, we rebuilt, me at the helm of a stripped-down Harrington. Legal and lean. Shipping green tech to Europe instead of ghosts from the past. Board meetings became therapy sessions. Uncle Ray's sober for the first time in years. Aunt Lydia's rosary prayers laced with pride. You did good.
Niece.
Save the soul. If not the silver.
Saved?
The word chafed. Protesters still picketed weekends. Signs evolving to Ella's redemption or ruse. Accusing me of whitewashing blood money. Investors balked. Stock dipping like a bad bet. And the controversy crested in a 60 minutes ambush. Cameras shoving mics in my face outside the office. MS. Harrington. Was it all a ploy for control? Your own kin behind bars, cold-blooded. Cold-blooded. The accusations stuck. Mirroring the mirror in my bathroom, where I studied the lines etching my 26-year-old face. No. 18 reborn. But wisdom aged me cruel. I'd chosen exposure over embrace. Revenge over reconciliation. Victor rotted in a cell. Jake exiled. But Grandpa? He withered. Doctors muttering about stress-induced arrhythmia, the same lie that had buried him before. The decision haunted. That diner counteroffer. Victor's eyes pleading beneath the steel. Truce? For family? I'd scoffed then.
But now,
with the empire a husk and blood ties frayed to threads, doubt festered. What if forgiveness wasn't weakness, but the ultimate power play? What if I doomed us all by clinging to the blade? It broke open on a rainy Tuesday, me elbow deep in spreadsheets. When Mrs. Delgado buzzed. Visitor for you. Mija. Says it's personal. I knew before she said the name. Victor. Out on bail, some lawyer's loophole. His suit rumpled, but eyes sharp. The guards frisked him at the lobby, but he breezed past like he owned the joint. We met in the empty boardroom. Thunder rumbling over the harbor like applause for the absurd. Ella, he said. No preamble. Sliding into the chair across from mine. You win. Charges might stick, but the feds got nothing on you. Clean hands.
clean?
I laughed.
Bitter.
Save the speech. What do you want, a plea? Grandpa's your get-out-of-jail card. He leaned forward, elbows on the table, voice cracking the varnish of menace.
No.
Answers. Why'd you do it? Could have merged. Kept it in the family. I wasn't gonna gut you, hell. That was Jake's wet dream. Not mine. I just wanted.
In.
The word hung.
Raw.
I studied him. The crooked smile. Mirror to Dad's. The salt hair echoing Grandpa's youth. Blood. Undeniable. You threatened us. Blackmailed with the past. That's not family, that's felony. He winced, rubbing his temples. Desperation.
Kid.
Grew up hating him, your grandpa. My dad, scraping by on scraps while he built this. A sweep of his hand, encompassing the skyline.
Coral.
He framed me to save his ass. Prison turned me mean.
But you.
You're the wild card. The girl who came back. His eyes pierced. Knowing. Don't look shocked. I saw the change, 18 going on 40. The way you moved on him. Like you'd danced this tango before. Chills spidered my skin.
How?
A leak from Jake? Or sharper, Victor? With his shadows. Had eyes everywhere. Doesn't matter. You took everything once. I made sure you wouldn't again. He nodded. Slow. Pulling a folded paper from his jacket. Lila's last letter.
Creased from years.
Read this. Then decide. I did. Under the fluorescent buzz. Her script looping like a noose. Victor. My love. Forgive him. He wrote, enclosed check for your future. Says the girl's his light.
Ella.
Protect her. As he couldn't protect us. The girl.
Me.
Grandpa's light. Shining on the sun he'd shunned. Tears blurred the ink. Hot and unbidden. Forgiveness flooded. Controversial as confession. Not for Victor's sins, but for the boy he'd been. Abandoned in America's underbelly. Truce, I whispered, sliding the letter back. But not merger. Partnership legit. You consult. Off books clean. Help rebuild what we broke. His face cracked relief. Rage. Release. And the old man? I stood, extending a hand, not claw, but open. That's between sons. But tell him. I forgive. We all start over. He shook. Grip firm. The thunder outside softening to drizzle. Victor left with a nod. The door clicking shut like a chapter sealed. I called Grandpa then, voice steady. Come to the office. We talk. All of us. He arrived shuffling, eyes red-rimmed, collapsing into a hug that smelled of regret and rain. Victor waited in the wings, summoned by a text my doing. The reunion?
No hallmark hacks.
Words first, barbed and bleeding, accusations flying, tears salting old wounds. You left me to rot, Victor growled. For what? This empire of lies. Grandpa met his gaze. Unflinching. Fear. Son. I was a coward. But Ella. She showed me grace. Let me earn it now.
Grace.
The word anchored us. By night's end.
En chaque tentative.
Trembling sealed a pact. Therapy for the scars. Lawyers for the loose ends. A new Harrington. Inclusive and ironclad. Jake? We hunted him down months later. Extradited on fraud. His trial a footnote to our saga. He begged forgiveness in the courtroom. Eyes pleading across the bar. I gave it quiet. For my sake, not his.
Go live clean, I said.
Or don't. But you're out. The twist lingered. Though, Grandpa's identity. The final shock. In the letter's wake, we dug deeper, Lila's journals. Unearthed from a Jersey storage unit. Turns out, he wasn't just father to Victor, but architect of more, anonymous scholarships for war orphans, including Jake's mom, tying the betrayer back to blood. A full-circle noose. Karma's a bitch, Grandpa chuckled. Frail but free. But family's the rope that holds. We ended not in ashes, but embers happily fractured, tensions taut but tied. I walk the office now, locket around my neck. The city a canvas of second chances. Reborn. I learned. Revenge builds walls. But forgiveness? It forges keys. Controversial? Hell yes, scandal still whispers. Protesters fade to footnotes. But in the quiet, when the skyline gleams, I know I took everything back. Not with blood, but with the unbreakable thread of us. And Victor? He consults from a corner office, gruff but grinning, calling me niece with a wink. Grandpa watches from his armchair, scotch in hand, whispering, proud of you. Ace. Unbreakable.